This week in Arizona real estate, a controversial new state law is now in effect that changes what can be built in certain single-family neighborhoods. Phoenix market numbers show prices stabilizing while inventory stays high, and statewide indicators point to a market that's increasingly buyer-friendly, but still not cheap. Here's what we're breaking down today. 1. The new middle housing law, what it allows and where it could hit first. 2. Phoenix market reality check. Prices, days on market, and seller concessions. 3. Phoenix market trends from Redfin for November 2025, what the broader data says. 4. Statewide signals, inventory growth, price drops, and negotiating power. Let's start with the biggest policy story of the week. Arizona's family reports a new state law is now in effect requiring larger cities in Arizona to allow multi-unit housing, specifically duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes, in certain areas that were traditionally single-family zoning. This is House Bill 2721, often referred to as the Middle Housing Bill. Phoenix City Council voted in November to comply, and the law took effect with the start of the new year. AZ Families reporting gets specific about where the impact starts in Phoenix. The law will affect neighborhoods within about a 1-mile radius of downtown, including areas like the Willow Historic Neighborhood. And that's where the controversy really heats up. Supporters argue Arizona needs more housing types, especially housing closer to jobs and businesses. But opponents, particularly in historic neighborhoods, are worried about teardowns, character changes, and whether this law actually creates homeownership opportunities. One local real estate agent and attorney quoted in the AZ Family piece said the law could create both winners and losers depending on implementation. And a key critique from the Phoenix Historic Neighborhoods Coalition is that the law doesn't require units to be sold individually, meaning it may produce more rental units rather than a path to ownership. They also argue that multi-unit properties can be more expensive to buy, making them more likely to be owned by investors and used as rentals or even short-term rentals. Here's the takeaway if you're a market watcher. Over the next few months, watch for where city rules interpret this law most aggressively, because zoning changes don't hit every neighborhood equally. And if you live near downtown Phoenix or in a historic district, pay attention to whether lawmakers pursue exemptions for historic areas. Advocates in the report say they're pushing for that. Now let's pivot to the numbers, because policy is one thing, but buyers and sellers live in the data. A January 2026 update published by Phoenix area realtor Jeff Setlow describes a Phoenix market that's stable on price, with inventory high enough to give buyers options, and enough negotiation happening to matter. Here are the headline stats from that January update. Active listings, about 15,200. Median sale price, about $418,000. Year-over-year change, up about 2.4%. Average days on market, about 47 days. Absorption rate, about 3.1 months. That's closer to balanced than we've seen in a while. Two numbers here are especially weekly news relevant because they show the negotiating climate. Seller credits show up in about 29% of deals. Price reductions appear on about 38% of active listings. In plain English, sellers can still get deals done, but the market is punishing overpricing. Buyers, especially buyers who are prepared, are finding more leverage than they had during the frenzy years. There's also a split by price band. Setlow's update notes that listing activity is strong under about $350,000, where months of supply is notably tighter, meaning entry-level affordability is still competitive. The update also calls out faster-moving areas. Zip codes 85018, 85048, and 85254 were reported with median days on market around the low 30s, while higher-end listings over $800,000 average longer, around 66 days. Now, I want to cross-check Phoenix with a broader dataset. Redfin's Phoenix housing market page, based on MLS and public records, reports that in November 2025, the median sale price in Phoenix was about $465,000, up 3.4% year-over-year. Redfin also shows homes selling in around 61 days on average, versus 56 days the year prior, so time on market is rising modestly, and Redfin shows 1,170 homes sold in November, slightly down year over year. If you're noticing the Phoenix median price differs from the January 2026 update, that's normal. Different sources use different geographies, time windows, and methods. What matters is the shared direction. Prices aren't collapsing, but the market is giving buyers more time and more negotiating room. Zooming out to the state, the clearest theme is more inventory and more price adjustments. Houseo reports that statewide Arizona inventory was around 27,136 homes listed, with inventory up about 24.1% year over year, and months of supply around 3.4, up from about 2.6 previously. Houseo also reports a statewide sale-to-list price ratio around 97.5%, and that only about 12.7% of properties sold over asking, both signals of a market where sellers have less pricing power than they did during the boom. True Parity's 2025 market discussion echoes a similar theme: more days on market, a sale-to-list ratio under 98%, and fewer bidding wars, describing a shift away from peak seller conditions. So here's what I'm watching next week in Arizona real estate: how cities interpret and implement the middle housing law, especially near downtown Phoenix and historic neighborhoods, whether seller credits and price reductions continue rising in Phoenix, because that's the buyer leverage indicator that shows up before prices move, and inventory and months of supply statewide, because that's what determines negotiating power. If you want a weekly no-hype breakdown of Arizona real estate news, subscribe to AZ Real Estate Weekly. And comment below, are you watching Phoenix, Tucson, or another Arizona market right now?